Hello everyone. This is the 38th part of the story, I'm Vōldēmōrt. Chapter 233, Meeting on Asgard. Leaving behind the very disappointing Thor Odinson, Tom and his mother follow Odin across the Rainbow Bridge and through the city toward the palace in the distance. The city of Asgard somehow looked like a mixture of an advanced and old medieval city. It was surely a weird combination. Along the way, the citizens of Asgard would bow their heads in respect to their king while eyeing Tom and the Ancient One with curiosity. After many minutes of silent walking and admiring the bustling city, they finally made it to the palace, where Tom and the Ancient One could sense stronger soldiers than the ones they met upon their arrival. Entering its towering gate, they lead through the palace halls and to a meeting room, similar to a conference room with a large table surrounded by chairs. At the head of the table is a throne-like chair. Odin sits there and motions for them to sit as well. "Please, have a seat," Odin says, and they sit on the left side of the large table. "What are your names?" "You may call me the Ancient One, and this is my son, Tom," she says and motions to Tom. "Hey," Tom says with a wave. "When is Frigga coming?" Since Frigga is known as a skilled sorceress, Tom wanted her to be the one teaching him. That is if they agree in the first place. "I'm here." Tom hears as the beautiful Queen of Asgard materializes beside her aged-looking husband. "What do you need to speak about that needs my attendance?" Sitting in a seat beside her husband, Frigga crosses her legs as she eyes the two guests. "We're here for two things," Tom says with two fingers held up. "1, I want to be taught magic by Queen Frigga. 2, we would like to make an alliance with Asgard." Hearing Tom's words, the king and queen's eyes widened as they didn't expect someone to come to Asgard to learn. Especially from the queen herself. "Why do you wish to ally with Asgard?" Odin asks as he ignores Tom's first request for now. "Well, how do I put this?" Tom says with a hand on his chin. "Have you ever heard the word Ragnarok?" As Tom says this word, the room starts to shake as Odin lets loose a bit of his power. "What do you know of that word?" he asked with a menacing frown on his face. Beside him, Frigga wore a matching frown as she's very familiar with that world. "It's the end of Asgard, isn't it?" Tom asks with a shrug. "Yes, but where did you hear this word and who said it?" Odin asks, ready to swing his spear at any moment. "I heard it from no one, but I do know what will bring it and how to stop it, which is one of the reasons we are here. We wish to ally ourselves with you. You should be able to feel it, right? It's been too peaceful for too long. Especially for Asgard. Peace doesn't last for long. Sooner or later something happens to spice up the centuries." Tom explains. "What will bring the Ragnarok?" Frigga asked as she stared into Tom's eyes. "Your husband's past actions, and continuous inaction," Tom answered truthfully. "Hela brought Ragnarok, but she was made by Odin. That is his past actions. As for his continuous inaction, Odin could be with Hela, helping her and trying to show that he cares, but instead, he ignores her and hasn't visited her a single time. It's probably been hundreds or thousands of years, yet they probably haven't even spoken." Hearing Tom's answer, Frigga's eyes go wide as she turns and eyes her husband in contemplation. Odin wore a confused, distraught, and furious expression after hearing Tom's answer. "I would never bring danger to Asgard. I've spent my life dedicated to protecting it," Odin exclaimed. "I never said you did it knowingly," Tom says with a shake of his head. "Why don't we all calm down?" The Ancient One says as she materialized a tea set and started pouring everyone a hot cup of tea. "I agree, thank you," Frigga says as she takes a cup and sips it. Seeing his wife acting this way, Odin knew he had to calm down and rein it in. Frigga is more than just a queen and wife to Odin, she is also his most trusted advisor. If she takes these people's claims seriously, then he needs to calm down and follow her lead. Now, do you have some sort of faction, planet, kingdom, or organization you represent? Because an alliance with two people isn't really worth anything to Asgard. You may be strong, but Asgard isn't lacking in strong warriors. Frigga states, fishing for information on their guests. Yes, we're from Earth, but I believe you call it Midgard. We represent the sorcerers of Kamar-Taj. The Ancient One continues her conversation with Frigga. It's easier to deal with a more level-headed person after all. She's actually the Sorceress Supreme, which makes her the leader of the majority of sorcerers on Earth, or Midgard. Tom explains his mother's position further. I didn't know Midgard had magic users. Odin mutters as he remembered it as a very primitive and barbaric place. That's the way we like to keep it. The fewer people that know about the Earth and its power, the better. I already have to worry enough about interdimensional attacks. If I had to worry about the rest of the universe too, I may actually go bald. The Ancient One says. But you are bald. Tom says matter-of-factly. I choose to be bald. I can easily grow my hair out again. She answers with a roll of her eyes. Wait. You're telling me that you could grow hair this entire time? Tom asks bewilderedly. Yes. His mother nods. Why? Chapter 234 interrupted. Wait. You're telling me that you could grow hair this entire time? Tom asks bewilderedly. Yes. His mother nods. Why? Tom asked further. Why what? She looked at him funny. Why choose to be bald of all things? Tom clarifies. I mean, you have magic, so doing your hair shouldn't be hard. I think we're getting off subject. Queen Frigga cut in as Odin grunted in agreement. Oh, sorry. The Ancient One apologizes and Tom decides to leave this for later. He wants to see what his mother would look like with hair. Tom doesn't even know what color her hair is. As I was saying, Kamar-Taj would like to ally itself with Asgard. We would be equal allies. Therefore, if you need help with something that falls under our expertise, we would gladly help whenever needed, but that means you would have to help us as well. Tom explains. What is your expertise exactly? Odin asked. Well, the masters of Kamar-Taj are all trained in combat and many different types of sorcery. If you need help with an enemy, we're just one portal away, and if you have some sort of mystic arts-related problem, we can handle that too. We're used to a lot of interdimensional threats as well. Tom explains as his mother lets him take the reins of this conversation. I never knew Earth had so many attacks from other dimensions. Queen Frigga says questioningly. I've been the Sorceress Supreme for many years, and I can say with confidence that I have to deal with attacks like this at least once a month. Some are small-time entities looking for a place to rule and exploit, and others are far worse. The Ancient One shares her experience. If she speaks the truth, then Midgard seems to be a magnet for dimensional beings. Frigga wondered why that might be. Although, she doesn't deal with them herself all the time. We have many trained masters that are delegated work based on their power and skill set. When you come to train to be a sorcerer, you make a vow to use your powers to protect the Earth or Midgard. Tom explains further. I would like to see this place with my own eyes before coming to a decision. Odin says, getting a nod from his wife and queen. Yes, I think that would be for the best. We should get to know each other before entering an agreement. Frigga says with an inviting smile on her face. That would be fine. The Ancient One agrees. Good, before we're off to give them the tour, let's talk about my learning under Queen Frigga. Tom says, ready to get started. Why do you want to learn from me? Frigga asks with a raised eyebrow. It's pretty simple. I heard you are a very powerful sorceress, if not the most powerful one in all of Asgard. Tom compliments her. That may be true, but from what I hear, your Camartage doesn't lack magical knowledge? Odin half asks. That's true, but we don't have any knowledge or books on Asgardian magic. Tom says matter-of-factly. I poured through every mystical library we have and haven't found a single thing, so I got interested. It just so happens that Camartage needs an ally for the future battles to come, so I'm using this opportunity to learn. Tom says straightforwardly. If you don't mind my asking, what is your position in Camartage? Odin asked, hoping he has a low enough position to warrant turning him down. He's my successor. When I step down, he will become the Sorcerer Supreme. The Ancient One answers with a smile before Tom could say a word. Teaching the future leader of this group may not be a bad idea. Odin thought as he eyed the young man that Heimdall said is as strong or stronger than himself. If we can create a friendly connection between us, then we would have a powerful ally. Even when I'm gone, Thor would have someone to go to for help. Thor is Odin's biggest worry. He's supposed to be the future king, yet he slacks on his studies and only wishes to eat, drink, fuck, and fight. Loki would make a far better king, yet he is not of Asgardian blood. With his plan failed, Odin turned to his wife for her to make the decision. She's the one that would have to commit to teaching him after all. Seeing her husband's look, Frigga thought it over for a brief moment and turned to look at her possible student. How about this? We will schedule a day to come to Camartage and look around. If we agree to this alliance, then I will take you as my student. Frigga offers. That's fine with me. Tom nods, hoping they like what they see because the only other option is robbing them of books to study from. When would you have time to come? I'm not sure as if this moment. The life of royalty is very busy. Odin says as he remembers all of the paperwork he has piled up. Paperwork is the nightmare of every leader. We'll send a message when we know the exact time. Frigga says with her arm on her husband's shoulder. Okay, that's fine. It was nice meeting you. Boom. Suddenly, the door was slammed open so hard that it fell off its hinges. Wait. Chapter 235, Second Prince. Wait. Thor came barreling into the room, destroying the doors and knocking over soldiers along the way. Thor, what are you doing here? Frigga asks with a stern look on her face. She loves her children dearly, but she has already warned Thor against interrupting this meeting. It was the reason she was late to arrive in the first place. She went to both of her children and warned them against causing any trouble. Especially while Asgard is hosting someone of Tom's power level. Loki was warned to not pull any pranks, and Thor was warned against starting fights, but it seems the older brother couldn't hold himself back. Unless, of course, Loki somehow instigated Thor's actions, which is very possible. You know what I want, Mother? Thor says as he turns towards Tom's direction. Fight me. He stated as he stared into Tom's eyes. No, Thor. I've already told you my ruling on this. There will be no fighting today. Now leave this instant. Odin says with an authoritative stare. Soon, the room fills with silence as Thor and his father have a stare down, which Thor was losing. I don't mind having a friendly spar between our children. The Ancient One says, breaking the silence. I don't think that's a very good idea. Queen Frigga says as she looks between Tom and Thor. Tom was obviously stronger than Thor, so they didn't want their child fighting someone who they didn't know would hold back or not. If Tom decided to go all out, Thor may actually die. Well, it wouldn't be a fight to the death. Just an average spar. Neither side would go too far. We can set ground rules that they would have to follow. The Ancient One explains. I don't mind. Tom speaks up. You heard them, father. Thor says with a smile plastered on his face. They agreed, so it should be fine, right? Fine. Odin says and receives a scandalous look from his wife, Frigga. What? She says as she looks straight at her husband. Losing will hopefully teach him a lesson. Odin whispers to Frigga. Don't worry, we'll make some rules and I'll watch over and intervene if anything seems off. Okay. Frigga says after a long pause. While Thor was celebrating his success at getting his parents' approval, everyone else was stating rules that had to be followed during the spar. It was the usual stuff. No killing. No maiming. No crippling. Etc. After coming up with everything and telling the rules to Thor and Tom, they were escorted to an open training field in the palace. As they entered, the soldiers and nobles that were using the field were told to leave. Hearing orders from the king himself, everyone left swiftly without a single complaint. In Asgard, when the king tells you to do something, you do it because the king's word is law, and breaking that law can be punished by death. Although Odin wouldn't do that now, there are still stories of how he used to kill someone for even the slightest offense. With the field cleared, Tom and Thor stood opposite one another waiting for Odin to call the start of the spar. In the distance, looking out one of the palace windows, the dark-haired Asgardian prince Loki could be seen watching the show with an evil smirk. When he heard of his brother's encounter with the intruders, he snooped around to find out everything that happened. Since his mother was involved, it was hard to get done, but Loki found out that the male intruder was way stronger than Thor, which is why their father refused to allow his favorite son to fight him. The second Loki heard that, he went and visited his downtrodden brother and egged him on, pushing all of his buttons in order for him to go and get himself killed. The funny thing is, by the time Thor was rushing for his death, he was thanking Loki for all his help and guidance. Hee, what an idiot. Loki thought as he watched his stupid brother eyeing his opponent cockily. What are you looking at? He heard from over his shoulder. Huh? Loki grunted as he turned to see his mother standing there with a look that says, I know what you did. Hello, mother. What are you doing here? Loki asks as he checks the field and sees that the woman down there is just an illusion. The Frigga before him is the real deal. Why must you scheme against your brother? He wouldn't have disobeyed your father without your goading. Do you really wish for your brother to die? Frigga asked with a worried frown on her face. Loki doesn't answer and merely stares at his mother quietly. She's the only one that he doesn't want to scheme against. When everyone was coddling Thor, she was the one that showed him the most love. While others were praising Thor's skill with the sword, she would praise his skill in magic. When their father ignored him in favor of Thor, Frigga did the exact opposite. She spent all of her time with him to make up for his lack of a father. It's safe to say that Loki loves Frigga dearly. Without answering his mother's question, Loki makes a quick escape and disappears, leaving his worried and saddened mother behind. Chapter 236, Showdown. As Thor and Tom stood across from one another, Odin acted as the referee and started going over the rules once again. While this was going on, the Ancient One looked over at Queen Frigga and could already tell that she switched herself out with an illusion. Where did she go? She thought. Tom didn't notice as he and Thor were currently being lectured about the rules of their spar. After a good 5 minutes of Odin's non-stop talking, it was finally time for the match to begin. Please go easy on my son, Odin said to Tom just loud enough for Thor to barely hear. A confused look graces Thor's face as he wonders why his father would say that. Yeah, he was sent flying with one kick earlier, but a single move doesn't determine the stronger of the two. Pushing these thoughts to the back of his mind, for now, Thor's blood boiled as he stared down his opponent. Without saying a word, Tom gave Odin a reassuring nod. He didn't want to kill or do any permanent damage to Thor. Just give him a small beating and, hopefully, teach the prince a bit of humility. All right, you know the rules. The match will begin on 3. Odin says as he backs up to give the two some room to work with. 1, 2, 3. The second his father said 3, Thor swung his hammer in circles by the leather string at the end of the handle and used its momentum to launch himself forward at his opponent. Tom, who knew he was stronger than Thor, didn't draw either of his two overpowered swords and decided to stay barehanded. As Thor came hurling at him with his hammer in hand, Tom simply stepped to the side and dodged the oncoming attack. Following the hammer's momentum, Thor crashed into the walls of the palace, destroying it with ease. He's a messy fighter, huh? Tom comments and receives an annoyed grunt from the king. Thor likes to fight so much that he has at least 2 battles a day. Those battles almost always end with parts of the palace or city that need to be repaired. If they didn't have magic to clean up after Thor, Odin would be hemorrhaging money for all the repair costs. Out of the smoke and rubble of the palace wall, Thor's hammer launched out in Tom's direction like an oversized bullet. Not wanting to test his luck, Tom sidestepped the hammer. As the hammer passed him, Thor came dashing out of the rubble with his hand held out. A smile graced Thor's lips that screamed, "I got you." Sensing something off, Tom tilts his head to the side and Mjolnir comes shooting past his ear and back to Thor like a yo-yo, but without a string. It seems the usual moves won't work against you. Thor mutters as he catches his trusted hammer and rushed in for some close combat. Stepping into range, Thor swung his hammer, aiming at Tom's ribs. Since Tom is far faster than Thor, he turns his body slightly to avoid the hit and backhands Thor across his unguarded face. The slap hit and Thor was sent flying into the palace walls, breaking them once again. Across the palace, Loki found another hiding place to watch the fight and couldn't help but smile in glee as he saw his brother slapped like that. Seconds after being sent through the wall, Thor came barreling out with a confused look on his face. Never had he been so easily handled like this in a fight. He's always had the upper hand unless it's against his father. Even his brother Loki with all of his tricks couldn't stand a chance against him. What's the matter? Did you think that kick earlier was just a lucky hit? Tom asked the bewildered prince. Thor didn't speak as he grasped his hammer tightly. Lightning began to crackle along his hammer as the sky above became covered in dark clouds. Soon, lightning and thunder rumbled up above as Thor lifted his hammer to the sky. Suddenly, a large group of lightning converged from the cloud and shot down in Thor's direction, striking his hammer like a lightning rod. As the lightning entered the hammer, Thor was covered in strands of blue lightning that coursed around his body erratically. With his newfound boost in power thanks to the lightning, Thor looked at Tom with a winning smile. Just some advice for you. You should really find a way to speed that up a bit. If I was your real enemy, I would have simply attacked you as the clouds began to change. Never let your enemy get a power-up if you can stop it. Tom says like a teacher to his student. Then why didn't you? Thor asks with lightning dancing along his body. Because no matter the power-up, you're still far weaker than me. Tom says as he disappears in a burst of speed. Huh? Thor grunted in surprise as Tom appears behind him and Spartan kicks him across the training field. Chapter 237 Aftermath. Thor point of view. It's not every day that I have to rely on my thunder so much to win a fight, yet it was all for nothing. Even with the lightning coursing through me, enhancing my senses, strength, and speed, I couldn't even lay a single hand on that man. After using my strongest move, he just kicked me into a wall and knocked me out. I woke up hours later in my bed with all of my injuries healed. Mother must have healed me up. She always does. How could I lose so easily? I don't even remember his name. Did I even ask? Suddenly, the door opened and I see my mother walk in with a gentle but stern look on her face. I know this look. I'm very disappointed in you, Thor. She says as I fight the urge to roll my eyes. I didn't know he was so strong. I said, knowing it wouldn't help my case. Yes, but we did and we told you not to fight him. Do you think we would just order you to do something without any reason behind it? My mother says as she takes a seat on the edge of my bed. Soon, the lecture started and by the end, I was wishing to fight that man again than deal with my mother. I really have to stop falling for Loki's tricks. As Tom kicked Thor in the back, he didn't sit idle and dashed at his retreating body. When Thor tumbled to a landing and was getting back on his feet, Tom threw a quick punch to his face, knocking him out cold. Well, that ends that. Tom muttered as he looked over to Odin and Frigga. Nothing was needed to be said as Frigga appeared beside her son and started treating his injuries. Is he all right? Odin said worriedly. He normally wouldn't act this way in front of anyone, even his children, but a parent will always worry for their child, I guess. After seeing to her son's wounds, Frigga saw that he was barely even hurt at all. Looking towards Tom, Frigga gave him a grateful smile. Thank you for going easy on him. At most he has a small concussion from the final blow. Nothing else seems to be wrong. She says as her husband gives him a grateful nod as well. Soon, Frigga carted off Thor to be treated in a more comfortable area, leaving Odin and the two intruders turned guests behind. Your son seems very spoiled and pig-headed. Tom says curtly. Well, that may be my fault. Odin says with a tired sigh. Odin has always given Thor anything he wanted. He is his heir and Odin wanted to give him the childhood he and Hela should have had. Odin's father Bor was a tough man that valued strength over everything else. Let's just say Odin's childhood was very similar to Hela's. Learning by the example of his father, Odin treated Hela the same way he was treated. That didn't end well, so he went the complete opposite with Thor, indulging the boy's every whim. In doing this though, he created a spoiled pig-headed heir, who may not be worthy of the throne of Asgard. Only time would tell. It's only recently that Odin has truly learned what Frigga has always been telling him. Like all things, children need balance. He was too hard on Hela, creating a monster out of a beautiful little girl, and he was too easy on Thor. Let's not even get into where he went wrong with Loki. Well, maybe you should send him on a trial. Something to help him build character. Just wait until the next time he fucks up badly, so he has something to learn from and send him off. Tom says exactly what Odin has been thinking as of late. Maybe, I'll do that. Odin agrees. At least he doesn't seem like a bad person, so you have a good base to work from. I don't get the feeling of any scheming or ill intentions from him. He just needs to learn to use his head. Tom comments. Hearing Tom's words, Odin couldn't help but picture his adoptive son. Loki is the embodiment of scheming and ill intentions. Well, that's enough of that. I have work to be done, so you should be on your way. I'll contact you when I know the date and time of our arrival. Odin says. After saying their goodbyes, Tom and the Ancient One open a portal and leave. As the portal closed, Odin's face went hard as he saw how easily those two could leave the palace. They might not be in the inner palace, where strict magical countermeasures are in place, but this is still the royal palace of Asgard. If anyone could so easily come and go, then the security needs to be changed in such a way to combat that. With a sigh, Odin went to find his wife. She always has an answer, whether it be for magical, political, or family problems. He's learned throughout his long life that listening to his wife is the best option, because he, like his son Thor, tends to mess things up. This marks the end of part 38 of the story, I'm Vōldēmōrt. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe the video to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.